Lots of people want to have silent shooting on their camera, and the Sony A7 series actually offers that. But it is a bit tricky due to a certain point I want to mention in this video to really get the camera noise-free. Let's get started. So the first thing which comes to mind if you look at the Sony A7 series here, so this is the A7R Mark IV, and it's a perfect camera. I should say it's compact, it's lightweight, it has all the features you want. It has 61 megapixels, so high resolution. It's very good in available light. I mean, I could continue that list for a while, but if people think about silent shooting, they mainly think about the shutter. And I'm going to show quickly in the menu how to get the shutter silent, but unfortunately that's only half the check. So let's have a look into the menu. So if we go into the menu, so we push the menu button here, and I might want to do a walk through the menu situation of the A7R IV later in time. Currently I have no appetite to do that, but it is actually a quite complex menu. And you can also read in the web that people struggle from time to time to find what they are looking for in that very much cascaded menu structure. But if you are in quality image size, and we go a little further here to, let's say, the second one. So by the way, if you are down here, you can scroll into the horizontal direction between the different sections. But if you go up here, you see I'm going now up here, I can switch between the main sections. And if you go to the second one and then go down and go to the 5th page, you get silent shooting. And if silent shooting is off, let's just try this. You hear that sound? That's the mechanical shutter. And what I have here is I have still an electronic front curtain shutter which reduces vibrations, but it nevertheless makes that noise here. So listen again. So, all right, but if you go into silent shooting and enable silent shooting, the shutter will be purely electronically, and that will reduce the noise completely. But you might also have some other issues like rolling shutter, which can play a certain role in certain scenarios or situations. I think in general the silent shutter works quite well. So let's take the shot. You hear the beep for the focus, but you don't hear the shutter release. And maybe as a next point, I show how to get away with that beep here, because I think that's still not silent, of course, but the shutter noise, because it's now electronic and no longer mechanical, is completely gone, taking the picture without any noise. So if you want to get rid of that confirmation beep for focus, we go into the menu. We go actually on the upper section here to the network symbol. We go down and scroll back one page, so it takes us back to the custom operation 3 mode. And there is one line item saying audio signals. So currently this is on. You hear the beep. You don't hear the shutter sound. And then we go into the menu again and we say audio signals, and you see here now a symbol off, and now it should be gone. See? This camera is completely silent now. But hang on for a second. Completely silent? Really? I still hear some noise here. I don't know if you can hear it, so I'm going to place my recording camera slightly differently to illustrate what that noise is. And that's why I said at the beginning of the video, it is a bit tricky to get the Sony A7R or A7 series completely silent. Let's have a look. So when I have the aperture wide open at 1.4, and you basically see it in here, so aperture closed, aperture open, then if I focus, it's not making any noise. But if I close my aperture and stop down here, let's say to f4, then if you look inside and listen to the noise, it is still making some annoying noise here, because for focus 8 the aperture is opened widely. Also, it's actually stopped down to an f4. So what the lens is doing here, when it opens the aperture widely, for focus, even the lens is stopped down to say f4 or f5.6, that makes a lot of sense, because by opening the aperture, the lens and the sensor can catch more light, the focus points catch more light, and focusing will become quicker. And that's why I said at the beginning, it is a bit tricky. If you want to get rid of that noise, there is a menu item which you can exploit to actually do that. And that's what I'm going to show next. So in order to deal with that noise coming from the lens aperture, and let's briefly recapitulate. So we were able to switch off the annoying beep for focus confirmation. We were able to switch from mechanical to electronic shutter in order to get rid of the noise of the shutter. But there is still this noise coming from the lens when, if the lens is stopped down, the aperture opens widely to catch light and speeding up the focus. Now, you can actually influence this, and there's a menu item. I'm on the upper section again, so I can scroll here horizontally. You go to the first one, the camera menu, and then you go down and you go to page number 5. Actually, it's page number 6. And on page number 6, there is one menu item which is called Aperture Drive in Autofocus. And that menu item is influencing your focus speed by deciding whether the aperture will be opened widely for focusing or not. Let's try this out. So if we go here on silent priority, then it says the focusing speed may decrease. Yes, I accept that, because silence currently is more important to me, and I confirm. Now it is in silent priority. Let's see how this influences the behavior of my aperture in the same experiment that we did before. So let's recapitulate. When we had the aperture wide open to 1.4, there was no issue. The lens is open. By the way, there is a mechanical wheel here, so you can close it, open it. Now it's wide open, and focusing is not an issue. No noise. Then when we stopped down to f4, we heard this noise coming from opening the aperture. And now we are in silence priority for aperture and autofocus, and listen to that. No noise, no pre-opening of the aperture in order to catch more light, but probably at the expense of a slower autofocus. And we are going to try this out in a moment, okay? So now we don't have an issue. Even if we close down more, let's say to f8 here, the aperture stays closed and autofocus has to live with the available light coming through that f8 stop down or closed aperture. But no noise. That's the silent shooting, right? So what else? Let's go back into the menu. Let's choose Aperture Drive in Autofocus Standard. That created the noise we heard before. Let's now try out Focus Priority. And the educated guess would be that this opens the aperture even more wide in order to catch even more light and let it fall on the sensor and the autofocus points to be even quicker in autofocus. So let's see what the result is when we change this to focus priority. And standard kind of is the interpolation or the compromise you have between the two. And that's the one we saw already. And in silent, we saw it remains stopped down, it doesn't open, it's completely silent. So now it says the sound of the aperture drive may be audible and the aperture value may not be displayed on the screen. Well, I should say already in standard it was quite audible. And in particular, if you're a wedding photographer in church, you don't want to have that sound. So let's switch now to focus priority and see if this gets even louder. In order to see the updated behavior, let's first of all stay for a moment at the widest open aperture of 1.4. Let's have a look inside. Focus is not making any noise. The aperture is widest open, so no need to adjust for the aperture. To catch more light, we are already in the maximum light catching mode here with an f1.4. Let's stop this down to, let's say, f8. So I'm now at f8 here. Let's have a look and listen. It's actually quite good. But you still hear it, right? If you focus, you hear the noise. You see also it's at f8. It's not even stopped down. It just remains open, and just before the shut, when it focused, it actually goes into the closed mode of an f8 or an f-stop of 8. and you still hear the noise. I'm going to switch on audio signals now because I want to quickly test and demonstrate and show you actually how these different aperture drive modes influence your autofocus speed. So whether you are in silent mode, silent aperture, whether you are in standard, or whether you are in focus priority. Let's get started. We first put the aperture drive in autofocus into silent priority and see what we get. We also go to the upper section, go back to the audio signals and turn them on so that we have audible confirmation that focus locked in. I think for the demonstration that's easier. But you already see here that autofocus is slower. Let's have a closer look at that. So we are in the silent priority. I think it is very responsive, but it's not very quick. Now let's go into the standard mode. So aperture drive is now in standard. Let's see what we get. Much quicker. Do you feel the difference here? Much quicker. All right, let's now do the focus priority. So focus priority now. So let's conclude on the video. I think I showed what I wanted to show. First of all, it's easy to switch from mechanical shutter to electronic shutter, and then your shutter noise is gone. You might have to deal with some other effects which are known as rolling shutter, but in general, in most situations, it will work fine. I also demonstrated how to switch off the focus confirmation beep, which can be annoying. Currently, I have it on here, but you can also switch it off in the way I just showed in the menu. And then there remains the noise coming from the lens aperture. And we have three options here. So we have the silent priority, we have the standard, and the focus priority. And I mean, I didn't do a scientific test, but it's pretty clear from that little exercise here that in silent priority, you get completely rid of the noise, which is great for wedding photographers or people who want to have completely non-disruptive photography, completely silent. So you have that option. But since your aperture is not opening up widely in order to capture more light and transport it to the autofocus points on the sensor, it is also slower. I think the standard mode is a good compromise. I think it creates some noise, but it's only the aperture. It's not the shutter, it's not the beep from the autofocus confirmation. And, you know, as an award for, you know, accepting that noise, you get a much quicker autofocus. And then there's focus priority. I think the difference between standard and focus priority is negligible. If you want, you might feel that, you know, focus priority is a bit quicker, but I think standard is the preferred mode. But again, if for reasons you only know yourself, you need to have it completely silent, switch to silent priority, and then all the noise will be gone. And always keep in mind, silent means on all three components, on the lens aperture, on the shutter, and the autofocus confirmation beep. And by the way, this aperture noise is not, you know, only for the 24 G Master lens here. It's actually the same for the 55mm lens you get natively from Sony, and for many other lenses. I tested it on various combinations, and you always get that aperture sound. And there is a good reason why this menu item, aperture drive and autofocus, is included here. For me, for the time being, it will be standard. So let's call this last part of the video post-mortem. So when cutting the video, I was listening to the aperture noise coming from focusing over and over again. And I think actually the noise coming from the aperture is not worse if you are in focus priority or if you're in standard mode. So if you personally believe, and maybe it also depends on your lens and your particular camera model. So what I showed works for the A7R IV, the A7R III, the A7 III. So for a bunch of cameras, if your experience is that the noise for your individual subjective impression is not high in focus priority, then this might be the preferred choice for you. Anyway, leave me comments, drop me your thoughts. Let us share the different opinions and experiences people might have with silent shooting. And if you like my video, please give me a thumbs up. If you like my channel, I would be very happy if you subscribe and come back. Thanks again for watching, and peace out.